What you're about to see in this video will leave you speechless. By the end, you'll be completely shocked by what goes on behind the walls of this prison. One mistake can cost everything, or change the entire hierarchy of the block. Before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe to support the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss anything. Stay until the very end because what this man does will completely change everything you thought you knew about survival and respect. Let's get started. The first thing everyone noticed about Marcus Williams was his size. Big, heavy-set, slow-moving, the kind of man most predators assumed was an easy target. When he walked into cell block E, the Aryan Brotherhood didn't even bother whispering. "Look at that whale," one of them muttered. Their leader, Danny "Tank" Morrison, laughed. "Bet he won't last a week." By lunch, they had already chosen him as their entertainment. 4 gang members cornered him in the cafeteria, shoving his tray to the floor, laughing as beans and mashed potatoes splattered across his orange jumpsuit. But Marcus didn't flinch. He didn't shout. He didn't swing back. He just looked down at the floor, breathing slow, measured, like a man counting seconds. No one noticed his scarred knuckles or the tattoo half hidden under his sleeve, a mark of special operations, not prison ink. And when the biggest gang member lunged at him, the cafeteria watched something extraordinary unfold. The man they assumed was harmless moved with deadly precision, striking and disabling his attacker in seconds. By the time it ended, Tank and his crew understood the truth. They hadn't picked on a weak inmate. They had awakened a predator. Marcus had been at Riverside Correctional for less than 48 hours. At 43, heavy and unassuming, he looked like a man worn down by life. But years in the Marine Corps, elite raids, and classified operations had honed him into something lethal. He had been trained to read threats, control his environment, and strike with precision. That afternoon, Marcus deliberately displayed vulnerability. He carried expensive commissary items, paid with crisp bills, all bait for predators. When Tank and his crew approached during dinner, moving in a sloppy diamond formation, Marcus remained calm. The silence stretched, eyes meeting eyes. Tank shoved his tray at Marcus. Beans and potatoes flew. Marcus finally looked up, meeting Tank's gaze. "Apologize," he said quietly. The cafeteria erupted in laughter. But Marcus wasn't joking. He was offering one final chance to de-escalate, a courtesy learned in war zones. Tank moved to grab him. In an instant, Marcus intercepted the attack, pivoted, and struck with surgical efficiency. Tank doubled over, gasping, as his lieutenants froze in shock. Marcus calmly retrieved his milk carton, took a sip, and spoke again. "Apologize for the disrespect." The message was clear. The Aryan Brotherhood had made a mistake they would never forget. In under 3 seconds, Marcus Williams had claimed his presence, and the block would never be the same. The next morning, Marcus moved through cell block E like he owned every inch, though he kept his demeanor calm, almost invisible. His heavy frame, slow steps, and downward gaze made him appear as just another tired inmate. That was exactly what he wanted. Tank Morrison had regrouped. Humiliated in front of witnesses, his pride shattered, he whispered orders to his lieutenants, plotting revenge. 17 men in total, his crew plus hired muscle from the Latin Kings. Their plan was simple: isolate Marcus, overpower him, and restore their dominance. Marcus didn't panic. He had already mapped the block, the yard, the fences, guard patrols, blind spots, and choke points. Every corner, every bench, every gate became a part of his mental battlefield. He had learned in the Marines that control of terrain meant control of combat. During breakfast, tension simmered. Inmates sensed it. Whispers filled the air. Marcus chose a corner table, calculating distances and angles. 3 older black inmates, veterans of prison life, noticed him. "Military?" one asked quietly. Marcus nodded. 2 tours in Vietnam, he admitted. The men exchanged knowing glances. They had seen warriors before, and Marcus carried the quiet authority of one. Tank's men lurked in the shadows, testing him, waiting for the perfect moment. But Marcus was already 3 steps ahead. Every motion, every breath, every subtle glance was a part of a tactical assessment. The rules of prison combat were simple. Respect and fear determined survival. And Marcus was about to teach them both in the harshest way possible. By the time the yard gates opened for recreation, Marcus had already chosen his battlefield. Open ground near the chain-link fence, clear lines of sight, and multiple escape options. He walked deliberately, his presence calm but commanding. Every attacker who thought they could intimidate him would soon discover that patience and precision beat brute strength every time. For the first time in weeks, Marcus felt alive. The war for Cell Block E was no longer just about survival. It was about sending a message that respect had a new name. By mid-morning, the tension in Cell Block E had reached a boiling point. Word of Marcus Williams' cafeteria victory over Tank Morrison had spread like wildfire. Inmates whispered in corners, and even hardened veterans gave him a wide berth. Tank, bruised and humiliated, wasn't done. He had expanded his crew, bringing in muscle from the Latin Kings. 17 men in total, each carrying hidden weapons, each eager to restore the Aryan Brotherhood's dominance. Their target? Marcus. Their plan? Overwhelm him with numbers. Marcus walked calmly to his corner table in the yard, unhurried and deliberate. His senses were alive. Eyes scanned, distances measured, escape routes identified. Every movement was tactical. Even casual observers could sense that this wasn't just another prison fight. It was a calculated military operation disguised as an ordinary morning. Tank's crew moved into position, spreading wide to cut off retreat, closing the net around Marcus. "Time to finish what you started, fat boy," Tank shouted, his voice carrying across the yard. Other inmates fell silent, sensing the storm about to erupt. The attack came in waves. A wiry skinhead lunged first, a sharpened toothbrush aimed at Marcus' ribs. Marcus sidestepped, grabbed the wrist, and sent the attacker face-first into the chain-link fence. Another came from behind. Marcus pivoted, striking the solar plexus, then followed with a knee to the jaw, dropping his opponent instantly. Chaos erupted. 8 men went down in under 30 seconds. Tank's numerical advantage vanished like smoke. Confusion spread among the remaining attackers, their momentum broken, coordination lost. Tank, desperate, brandished a sharpened piece of metal. "Let's see how tough you are, Marine," he snarled. Marcus smiled, the moment he'd been waiting for. One-on-one. Skill versus desperation. Tank swung wildly. Marcus waited until the last millisecond, stepped inside, caught the weapon arm, snapped it with precision, and drove his knee into Tank's ribs. The makeshift blade flew across the yard. Tank collapsed. Silence fell. Inmates stared, mouths open, some cheering silently. Marcus stood calm, unbroken, orange jumpsuit clean despite the chaos. "Anybody else want to discuss disrespect?" he said quietly, his voice carrying across the yard. Tank's crew backed off, fear replacing arrogance. Marcus had claimed his territory, proving that discipline, training and patience were deadlier than brute force. The old hierarchy was gone. A new apex predator had risen, and everyone in Cell Block E knew it. Word of Marcus' yard victory traveled fast. By breakfast the next day, even the Black Gorilla family knew a new predator had entered Riverside Correctional. Their top enforcer, Diesel, was summoned. 6'6", 300 pounds of solid muscle, tattooed with decades of prison history. He was the nightmare every inmate respected and feared. Diesel strode toward Marcus' table, the cafeteria falling silent in his wake. "Heard you think you're some kind of badass," Diesel growled, his deep voice carrying across the room. Marcus didn't flinch, kept his eyes on his oatmeal, calm as if he were merely eating breakfast. "Just trying to do my time in peace, brother," he said softly. Diesel laughed, a sound like concrete cracking. "Peace. You put Tank in the infirmary. You declared war. And now I'm here to finish it." The room tensed. Inmates instinctively moved back, giving the 2 men space. Marcus rose slowly, deliberate, every inch of him alert. Even at 260 pounds, he seemed smaller next to Diesel, but every Marine who had trained him knew size was meaningless without technique. The first punch came like a cannon. Diesel's massive fist cut through the air, aiming for Marcus' head. Marcus had already anticipated it. He slipped inside, controlling Diesel's arm with perfect leverage, redirecting the force. Pain exploded along Diesel's nerves as Marcus struck pressure points with surgical precision. A slight touch, but devastatingly effective. Diesel tried again, wild swings fueled by muscle and rage. Marcus flowed around him like water, exploiting balance, angles, and overcommitment. One misstep from Diesel, one perfectly timed strike from Marcus, elbow to the armpit, nerve pain shooting down Diesel's arm. Marcus locked in a standing armbar, hyperextending the elbow. A sickening crack echoed across the cafeteria. Diesel fell to his knees, screaming, his arm useless at his side. Marcus released him, calmly returning to his table. He picked up his coffee, finishing it as medics rushed to Diesel's side. The entire room sat in stunned silence. In less than 90 seconds, the prison's feared enforcer had been neutralized. Tommy, Marcus' cellmate, whispered in disbelief, "Dude, you just took down Diesel. He's been the enforcer for 8 years." Marcus shrugged. "Size doesn't matter when technique is perfect," he said simply. His victory wasn't about dominance or ego. It was a statement. Respect isn't given. It's earned. And he had earned it, permanently. By the end of the day, everyone in Riverside Correctional knew Marcus Williams wasn't just a Marine or a former soldier. He was a predator who moved like death itself, and crossing him had consequences no one could survive. Weeks passed, and Riverside Correctional had been transformed. Marcus Williams' victories over Tank Morrison and Diesel had created a ripple effect throughout the prison. Respect for him was absolute. Inmates gave him space, gangs deferred to his presence, and even transferred prisoners were warned not to test him. But Marcus didn't seek control or alliances. He wasn't there to run the block or dominate others. His mission was simple: survive, maintain peace, and earn respect through discipline and skill, not intimidation. Prison life, however, is never static. Challenges could appear at any moment. Young inmates eager to prove themselves, jealous veterans, or incoming gang members could test him. Marcus was ready. His mind remained sharp, his body combat-ready, and his strategies flawless. The day of his release finally arrived. He walked through the gates carrying the same weathered duffel bag he had brought in, but everything inside him had changed. The warrior who had felt lost in civilian life had reclaimed his purpose. He had discovered that respect wasn't about uniform or rank. It was about how you carry yourself when everything is stripped away, when only your character, training, and calm under pressure remain. 6 months later, Marcus opened a martial arts academy in Detroit. His students didn't know his history. They didn't know he had dismantled some of the most feared gangs in the state. What they learned, however, was the same lesson he had demonstrated in prison. True strength comes from discipline, control, and precision, not brute force. Marcus taught them patience, respect, and mastery of the self. Every block, strike, and stance carried the quiet authority of a man who had survived battlefields abroad and the crucible of prison violence. He never judged by appearances, never underestimated anyone, and instilled the same lesson he had learned the hard way. Never judge a warrior by how he looks, because the calmest man may be the deadliest when cornered. The man who entered Riverside Correctional broken and weighed down by regret left as someone reborn. A master of mind, body, and honor, a living testament to the power of discipline over chaos. Marcus Williams had survived the war of the prison yard and emerged not only victorious but transformed, leaving behind a legacy far stronger than any gang's dominion.